This is Resolute and the Resolute Leadership Podcast. I'm Vince Miller, your founder and host, and today we're in a new series that we've entitled Men's Health. Today we're discussing the topic of health and our busyness. Welcome back to the program. If this is your first time tuning in ever, then thank you for joining us. Our mission is to disciple and develop men to lead. And so if you are looking for content for your church or men's group, you need to stop by our website today at beresolute.org. That's beresolute.org. We have a number of great tools there for men leading other men, including a number of great new series that we know that the guys at your church would love. If you're looking to disciple and develop the men of your church, then you've got to get a hold of our tools, all found at beresolute.org. And now, let's dive in. Well, today I'm joined by my good friend Keith TerHaar. He's an integrative health coach with the organization Intended for Health. You got to meet this guy. He's been a counselor for over 17 years. He's led many Resolute groups, and he's launching an effort to help men to understand their own personal health, coaching them not only to physical health, to spiritual health, looking very holistically at a man's life. Keith, so excited to have you here today. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Vince. Great to be with you again.
So I know that you've been thinking and contemplating, even praying and studying God's Word as it relates to men's health quite a bit. And so I want to lean on you for a few episodes around the topic of just health, vitality, energy that guys are looking for in life, and even that ability to really accomplish God's mission with these physical tools that God has given us, right? So Here's one of the questions I want to lean into you with today. Like, what do you think is the most common reason that guys give besides being too busy for not living out their values and the life of the discipleship that they feel called to? I mean, is it really their health, their physical health?
You know, I talk to a lot of guys, meeting with groups and individuals, and I'm always amazed at how often I hear guys tell me, I'm tired. You know, you ask them, how you doing? How's life? And they'll often say, really busy. But I think so many times they say, I'm really tired, just going too hard, not getting enough rest, whatever it might be. But it sure seems to me that that is a big reason that keeps guys from living out life and discipleship the way they really want to.
Now, I know, Keith, that you've been a professional counselor for almost 2 decades, a full 2 decades.
Right.
And you've probably heard this excuse a lot when guys come into your office, a lot when you counsel men, a lot when you sit in men's groups that you lead. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. And you tell me if you found that to be different. But, it's men, it's women, it's people who seem to have, I think, real strong desires to live a certain way. And yet, if you ask them, are you living the way you want to live? Are you doing the things you want to be doing? Often the answer is, not really. I just don't have the energy to do it.
So it's not, sometimes I wonder if we don't really have a real holistic understanding of discipleship and a walk with Jesus Christ. This is what it's challenging me to think about right now, Keith, is that really, I have responsibility not only for the mission that I live, but how I accomplish that mission. And one of the tools that God has given every one of us is the body that we have. I wonder if you've encountered men, when you talk about this subject, if they feel like they're fatigued, therefore they can't accomplish their mission, but if they feel like they could live in the skin of their body differently. And what do you say to them when they mention that tension that they're dealing with on the inside?
Well, I agree with you that we are whole beings, and to look at the big picture of how God made us as physical, emotional, spiritual beings. And so often the overlap to me is really really obvious. I have guys tell me sometime that, what keeps them from disciplines of reading their Bible or praying is that they can't stay awake in the evening. They come home, they're too tired. And so I love to see guys look at what they're trying to do in life, how they want to glorify God in their work, in their service, in their families, and realize that taking care of themselves and getting enough rest and doing the things to keep fueling that temple, right, that God tells us our bodies are, is an important piece of that. We realize, especially as we get older, as a guy pushing 50 here, that if I don't take care of that part of me, it really diminishes what I can do in terms of service and for the kingdom.
Yeah, and so I think you're suggesting in some way that the responsibility we have to our physical body, including things like rest, the calories that we put into it, the physical discipline that we engage with as we exercise or care for our body is important in accomplishing God's mission, right? Because as you say we were born to run. In fact, that's what you entitled this topic today, is being born to run. We were born to use these physical beings to accomplish spiritual means. And so, I think about some of the training that Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 9. In fact, I'd love to read part of this text, Keith.
Awesome.
I think it's really insightful. Paul says this in 1 Corinthians 9, verse 24, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize. Everyone who competes in the games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that will last forever. Therefore, I do not run like a man running aimlessly. I do not fight like a man beating the air. No, I beat my body, I make it my slave, so that after I've preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize." Now, I got to ask you, what stands out in this text to you that speaks to this topic?
I love the text, as an athlete, and the metaphor of training, right, and using your body in a way that is, there's a competitiveness to this, right? And I guess I
can
like
include that here.
Yeah. So it is pushing us, right? And we realize this life is basically a short one in which God has given us a limited time to give Him what we've got. And He's saying, to train hard, go hard, run like you're trying to win. And I think that pertains to the life of the disciple.
Yeah, and I love this text because I think predominantly Paul is taking a physical training metaphor, right? He's applying it to our spiritual life, but he doesn't mean to apply it to our spiritual life to the exclusion of our physical life, right?
Exactly.
He's saying we should put as much effort as possible to accomplish spiritual things inside of the physical time frame so that we can get a crown that will last forever. I mean, one that will not diminish. We're not talking about a wreath that we wear on our head, right? We're not talking about physical trophies. We're not, in other words, working out to win the Arnold Schwarzenegger prize for best body, biggest man on earth, right?
Yes.
We're doing it for the purpose of his mission, and I think that's what's unique about Paul. So there is a call in the text for us to care for our physical self. And I've got to ask you, as you talk with guys, right, and you're talking with them all the time, and they begin to share with you some of these things, sometimes they talk to you about it, but sometimes you see them, right? How do you help guys address these things? Does it begin with the awkward conversation of just discussing how they do accomplish God's mission, or how does this topic come up? And how do you address it?
I'll tell you what, it comes up easier than you think.
Okay.
Because if you ask a guy how he's doing or how he's feeling, and he's really honest, that's often when you hear him say, "Boy, I'm tired." You might hear him say, I need to lose some weight or get more sleep or something like that. And I think the topic then evolves out of that immediate awareness of their physical health, and then becomes real evident in the way that other areas of their life are affected by that. Maybe their relationships, maybe their work, all of which are those important things that depend on good health.
Yeah, and all these things are related. We can't, again, it's a very holistic approach to accomplishing God's mission. We've got to care for our physical selves. And so some of it is sometimes related to working too much. Sometimes it's to eating too much. Sometimes it's not exercising or caring for our physical bodies, whatever it might be. It's having some discipline in this area and learning to step into that discipline. What would be a great call to action today, Keith, from your standpoint, for guys listening to something like this?
Do I only get one?
You can take as many as you
Okay,
want.
I'm going to give two quick ones, okay?
Go for it, yeah.
One would be just identify fairly quickly what it is that gives you energy.
Okay.
And
physical energy?
Physical energy.
Okay. Physical
Well,
energy.
maybe it's spiritual energy, but I think they overlap.
Okay.
But if you know that, getting more sleep or exercising or getting out and doing something that you enjoy really gives you energy, I would say make a commitment to that because that's one thing you can do quickly. You can decide to do it today, right? Get an extra hour of sleep.
Okay.
The other thing, really interestingly, that God gave us that we forget is just the Sabbath, okay? So how many of us really keep the Sabbath in a way that really helps us restore and refresh and re-energize? I'm always impressed with guys who tell me, Keith, I started taking a Sabbath, really observing a Sabbath where I rest, I don't do any yard work, I just take it easy. And interestingly, they tell me, I'm so much more productive during the week. I feel so much better. I'm getting more done. Mm-hmm. And it's quite ironic. It's like, well, don't we trust God that, when he said, hey, take a Sabbath, it might be good for us.
No, we don't trust God. Come on, man. That's exactly the kind of unhealthy patterns we get in. And that's part of our problem, isn't it? And we live in this very high-paced society. Therefore, we sit at our desk and eat all day, right? And then we get in these unhealthy patterns because there's more work to do. Then we get stressed out because we're not making sales or we're behind with clients. So we sit at our desk more and we eat more and we end up becoming obese and challenged by that because we haven't taken any rest. And then we look up and we work 7 days a week for the last 30 years. Exactly. And we look up at 30 years of incredible unhealth, and we're very unhappy with ourselves. And that's not to put anybody down. That's not the purpose of it. It's really a reality check, and I think that's what Sabbath is too, right? It's a reality check. It's an awakening, right? And it requires. Here's the crazy part: is it requires discipline to get there. Like Paul said, it's like, Paul said, I'm going to punch myself in the eye. I'm going to beat my own body. And and it's really kind of strange because this guy was all beaten up to begin with, this guy was tortured. And yet he's willing to go that extra mile, right? Yeah. And I think that's Paul's call. If he says, if I can do it, you guys can get there too.
Right.
Isn't that encouraging?
Awesome.
It is awesome. Well, Keith, thank you again for being with us.
My pleasure.
Well, guys, that's the show. Thanks so much for listening. As we close, I want to remind you of two things. First, we have great content for your men's groups, excellent small group videos and participant handbooks that will empower the men of your church to lead and equip them to build the guys around them. Check it all out at beresolute.org. And secondly, if you are looking for a little personal coaching as it relates to your health, you got to contact Keith TerHaar. intendedforhealth.com. Intended, the number 4, health.com. You reach out to him there. Just tell them Vince sent you. He would love to speak with you. If you're looking for personalized health coaching of a spiritual nature, you're going to love this guy. Professional counselor for a number of years and would love to talk to you directly. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast, but please know that the time that we spent together today is worthless unless you choose to do something with it. So act on it. Do something today by getting off the bench and into the game. And I'll see you right back here next time for another edition of the Resolute Leadership Podcast.